Welcome, everyone, to Inspired for Mission. I am Jamie Larson McClune, pastor at Bethel in Muskego and Gloria Day in Menominee Falls. I'm also a member of our Synod's Mission Table, and that's the group that convenes these gatherings each month. Tonight, we are talking about some of the songs that inspire us. We're going to hear a couple of stories from a couple of pastors in our synod, and we're grateful for them being here tonight. Both songs and stories are things that God uses to connect us in community. They create really powerful connections. So we'll just get into hearing those stories right away. We're also going to try to play some videos. If you're watching the recording of this later, hopefully you will see some links to those videos in our resources section, and you can watch them too and connect with help make those connections between the songs and the stories we're going to hear. We're going to start with Pastor Steve Bogey. Pastor Steve, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? A little bit about your song, because you want us to pay attention not to the words so much as the sound. Am I right?
That is correct. So my prior vocation was I made money by being a musician. I would even say that I was a touring musician, but that's what I did. And so I am very much affected by sound and frequencies and all that kind of stuff. I love like listening to music to see where my mind will travel. And so today I picked a very unique song where, like, I'm sure that most people have some beautiful lyrics or even some deep meaning to songs. I brought today to the fold Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? And the reason why I bring this song is because of the historical kind of significance that the song has. So I have a little bit of a couple of things. I know that we got about 5 minutes, right, Jamie? So can I just blabber away a little bit and be okay? Cool. All right. So the title of Are You Experienced is often interpreted as questions about experiencing life fully, finding peace within oneself, and potentially exploring psychedelic experiences. Now, Jimi Hendrix, if you know, came from the late 60s, and he was a guitarist, one of the greatest of all time. He has definitely inspired many different musicians and all that stuff, but he came in a certain time and space of history that was the psychedelic age. So the lyrics of the song suggest a deeper meaning than simply asking if someone has experience, if you know what I mean. Hendrix' biographer, Harry Shapiro and Cesar Glebeck, suggest that the song is about finding peace within oneself and feeling beautiful. The song's titles and lyrics, along with Hendrix' connections to the psychedelic area, have led to interpretations that it explores the experiences gained through drugs like LSD and mescaline. So there is that kind of thing. Anyways, though, there is a connecting, concluding line that says, have you ever been experienced, not necessarily stoned, but beautiful? Further supporting the idea that the song is about finding an inner state of beauty beyond the typical. Jesus is asking the listener, have you ever opened your mind to a new way of thinking and feeling, recognizing the universal beauty that thrives in everything? Have you let yourself hear the trumpets and the violins in the distance, which call the names of anyone willing to listen? Jimmy is also asking the listener if we have life experience, if we've ever had our mind blown, and has anyone ever experienced us? That is what Jimmy is implying, that hanging out with him, he is going to do or going to involve all three. What I'm trying to say is hanging out with Jimmy is going to involve all three. And that's the kind of the message he has there. So anyways, the reason for this song is not really for the lyrics and all that other stuff, even though the Finding Inner Beauty is really cool. It's about the effect, the reverse effect that is in the song. As the song starts, you will hear reverse snare drums. And then you will hear guitar that's powered by a fuzz face pedal. It's a fuzz type of distortion pedal. And the song has some piano, and it's a really epic kind of sounding song. My main favorite part is the guitar solo because it's recorded in reverse. Now, no one thought of this before. Jimmy was recording and they were really busting their hump on trying to get this album out. And what Jimmy found is that as he was recording, some of the other tracks from the other side would bleed through, but they would come in reverse. So he started to get creative about it and he wanted to really have a different type of guitar solo in this song. So what he did is he flipped the tapes around and he started jamming and playing on it. Well, the recording engineer wasn't there until too late and he was already doing his destruction. And the guy comes in and he starts freaking out. He's like, oh, dude, what are you doing? You're going to ruin the entire album. It's almost done. He almost had a heart attack. And so basically, we get this song because of it. He did not ruin it. And you will find that bands like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, a ton of different music, even like in the song My Name is Al by Paul Simon, that bass line that everyone likes. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. That's in reverse. The song by Missy Elliott, Work It, that song is in reverse. And still up today, that effect is used always. All right. Crazy song, hey? So I don't know if anyone can appreciate it. When I first heard that song many, many years ago, I disliked it tremendously and it kind of grew over time. The reason why I like it is because of the dissonance. And there are these interesting spaces, especially where my hand's raising in that guitar solo, where he's like, and then the way that it kind of comes around and it ends on like a pin drop. That you can't do, that kind of phrasing and that kind of sound you can't make without it. Um, I feel that stuff like in my spirit. It's kind of like if I go to watch native dancing or some sort of kind of dance situation, maybe at like, I don't know, State Fair grounds or Summerfest grounds. I am very much influenced and I can feel a spiritual connection by the dance of the singing and with the pulse of the beat. So why this is important to me is there's a spiritual element to this for me. When I go home at night and I need self-care, I can close my eyes and just play. And sometimes I'll put on that effect and play really slowly. And it's interesting how I can unpack my day. And I can start to vision certain things in my own mind by just slowing down and playing music and hearing certain frequencies. Sometimes that could be like in a reverb where it sounds like you're in a hall. It goes psh, and then it slaps back to you. Or it can be like a delay. And so I find the frequency kind of stuff helps me just in my own spiritual self with prayer, with self-care and all that kind of stuff. And so that sound, for some reason, connects me there and gets me there. And so that's why it's important to me. It's hard to sometimes find those spaces to really connect with the divine, especially in some sort of trippy sound. You got to imagine what my wife must think while she's upstairs and I'm in the basement just tripping out, you know, but it does it for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Kathy, did you have a question?
Oh, you unmuted me, didn't you? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think people hear that kind of music differently than classical music?
Yes.
And or spirituals or typically classical church music? And I ask that because you have such a very different reaction to that music. That would never help me unpack my day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it just made me think, do as people, do we must hear music differently.
Well, yeah, I think that so like where I stop is I'm not a huge jazz or fusion fan. And what that means, so I did go to music school and I got a degree. So my ear is maybe a little bit um, eclectic. I like a lot of different music. But like this song for me that I relax with it has probably become more part of my life later in life. That wasn't something that I felt originally. It was probably more the intenseness of the song, which for some people hearing it could make them angry because it is so dissonant and not a lot of consonance with it. Though you get a pretty decent, like, depending on the context of genre of classical music, it's pretty dissonant and there's not a lot of consonants in there. But somehow people find the piece that connects them to the song and makes it bigger for them. But yeah, totally different than a church song. I would never play that in church. I might play okay, so I was gonna say the chord progression is really simple. So you can make the song really pretty. You could go. Chord progression right
We
there.
were hearing you, but then we weren't.
Oh, yeah, one more time.
He plugged into an amp.
We're still not hearing
chord.
you.
Is it cutting out?
I
We can
think
hear
it
you
might be a
talk.
thing that Zoom does.
Okay, so anyways, simple chords. G, D, and G. And there's an A in there too. So three chords in the truth.
So like what I'm appreciating, Pastor Steve, is like the physical aspects of music, the frequencies and the sound, you know, like I think, and so when I heard the song, I was imagining Jesus coming out of the Temptations.
Oh,
And like, do you have experience? You know what I mean? That was kind of like this bad, you know what I mean? Anyway, like been through this ordeal, this kind of like chaos
Cool.
or whatever. And I was a little bit back to Genesis too, like, you know, like, so I love something I haven't thought about before is the, 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 the physiological aspect of music. So, and something that happens to us at church is, we'll have this incredible experience with a piece of music and we won't quite know what to do with it afterwards. And we'll kind of like talk it off, you know what I mean? We'll kind of maybe name it or whatever, but we've never like leaned in, like we might lead into the lyrics.
Right.
But I've never leaned into the actual experience.
The harmony.
Yeah.
Dissonance, the consonants,
yeah, like
the
what all the
tension and
things we
release.
talked about.
Yes.
And what's to me kind of amazing is, but those are the things like that's our heartbeat and our ears, and you know what I mean, like our body. And so I really appreciate that kind of sharing this because it kind of like, oh yeah, like kind of somehow it's giving language to like when we walk away and like, huh, what was that? Like, or how it clicks into other parts. So I really appreciate that and learning kind of like how to um I don't know, reflect like, yeah, when we have an experience like that, we're like, huh, wow, we just responded in this kind of amazing way. And how do we make space and time for that? So, and then and this is just for me, I can't listen to music in the car because however the sound waves hit my eardrums, it's like nails on chalkboard for me.
Sure.
And so I don't listen to a lot of music because I don't. And so so for me, every time like I have an experience like this, it's like I love it. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, that's like a whole new way to experience God. Kind of what you said, the spirituality of it. So thank you. Yeah, but just that insight of like how to engage in that way and reflect on it.
Cool. I'm glad you got that. That's cool.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Listening to that piece made me think of what Mount Hope has been doing the last year or so. We have a bin of kid type tambourines and maracas. And when people think of it, they grab it on their way into worship. And sometimes we have some, I won't say raucous, it's not raucous, but you know, people love bouncing to the beat. Sometimes even to standard hymns, but more often to more contemporary song. And I just was thinking we might need to get some more instruments because every once in a while we run out. But and it's interesting because it's the oldest people generally who make sure they grab the instruments, or if parents know about it, they'll grab them for their kids. But then every once in a while, you see somebody go up after worship has started. And, oh, I forgot an instrument. And they'll walk all the way up during the worship to get an instrument, maybe get a couple extras for the people near them. And it has been such a really impactful addition to our worship services. There's more connection with the music. I think a lot of people, when they sing, especially contemporary music, really pay attention to the words they're singing. But when you're bouncing along or you're shaking a tambourine or a maraca, there's more involvement than just hearing and singing. And that's been just a great addition to Mount Hope.
Thanks for sharing that, Kathy. We talk about our whole bodies being engaged in worship, not just, watching and listening and thinking, but really participating. And that's just a really beautiful story about how that's happening at Mount Hope. Thank you. And thank you, Pastor Steve, for helping us think really differently about a song we might not have expected to hear tonight. That was really a gift. And we'll open up for more questions later. So if you come up with questions while we're listening to Pastor Tom's song and story, we'll just open it. We'll just blow it wide open after that story gets shared. Pastor Tom has brought a very different song. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, share a little bit about your song. Let me know if you want to kind of me to play it in the midst of your story or at the end or after your introduction, whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I think I'll give a little sharing and then we can show it. So again, I'm Tom Peets. I serve St. Olaf. This is it's just south of Hartford, north of Oconomowoc. I've been pastor for 30 years, 15 in Wisconsin, here in the Greater Milwaukee Synod, 9 years at St. Olaf. It's a 181-year-old Norwegian founded congregation. In the past, it's probably been primarily more organ-based. But since I arrived, we and another person, Steve Stretz, we have used guitars as primary along with piano, occasionally using the organ, but that's been our instrumentation. And then we use a box drum and we use other electrics like bass and electrical guitar and things like that. But our primary is two guitarists, one who can play leads and stuff and do harmonies, and I lead vocally and just do the strumming, finger picking, acoustic. So that's contextually where we're at. We're a church that likes drama. Okay. Everybody needs a little drama, right? No, I don't mean like conflict and all that stuff. But what I do mean is the last few years, there has been a what I like to call a soap opera series called The Chosen. Is anybody familiar with it? Okay, so you might know what I'm talking about. That has been instrumental in our understanding of Jesus in a very personal, relational, even emotional way, to understand the dynamics of people in the Bible and perhaps what they were experiencing. We know there's liberties, right? You got the scriptures and you got what might have happened, but contextually it gives us a little more perspective. And at least for me, it's given me new life. I've studied the scriptures for years, but for me, I get connected and deeply enthralled into the characters, let alone what's happening and what Jesus does. And this particular Jesus speaks to me because he is fun, he is serious, he is instructive, so compassionate, so many different things that I read about, but to see it in action is powerful. The song I'm going to introduce is called Come to the Table by Sidewalk Prophets. And I think I hear from more people who join our congregation who say this is home, is when they hear the words come to the table, and when I couch them beforehand with all are welcome here. And I usually, when the prayers are done, I walk up to the altar and I'm trying to tie in what the message was, perhaps the prayers, and tie it into ultimately leading to that table where Jesus is with his 12 male disciples, but the women are also in the background. So it's not exclusive. And I tie it in and then lead to oftentimes who's welcome at the table? All are welcome. And just that reaffirmation, especially when I see new people in, so they can hear that and know that. I met with a young family just a couple days ago, and they left the Missouri Synod Church. They followed a sibling because they felt it was exclusive. And when they came to our church, they felt this is home. This is where we are loved. What the song does, I What Prophets does, and I think this has the lyrics as well, is it ties in the chosen, and what you see is the disciples and some of their stories. You're going to see distraught Mary Magdalene. You'll see Matthew, the tax collector. He's in different threads, kind of really nice ones and stuff, and awkward, if you will. Probably Simon Peter, or yeah, and others. But you see the journey and how it portrays the story. Even Nicodemus, where it says the prince and the pauper, so the rich and the poor, and the contrast. And yet Jesus calls all of them, even calling Nicodemus to follow me.
Thank you, Pastor Tom. Is there some more you would like to share, or would you like to take some questions?
Contextually, in our church, we're a blended worship kind of congregation. So most of our services, I choose the music. I try to integrate hymns and fresh music, stuff maybe decades ago, just whatever really aligns with what we're trying to communicate. So whether it's a prelude song, which gets everybody there early, so they're on time, but it still centers us, to a worship medley of songs that usually an upbeat that leads to a more confessional song, and then spontaneous confession, prayer, and silence, and proclamation of the gospel in that prayer. And then a song that is a what do they call it? A scripture song, like ancient words, ever true, things like that. In our context, for the last few years, we have walked through the Bible alongside with using the chosen, and encourage people to watch that and show clips so they can see these stories unfold. And so to see this particular video was a culmination of them understanding perhaps the life stories of these people that were communicated in the chosen, but through scriptures. And so for our people, they would have a more emotional tie that, at least for me, every time I see a video like that, I have a sense of emotive response because I know their story. And I'm moved in my spirit by how Jesus transformed them, how Jesus was there for them. And so that has substantial, and when you've got the visual of the song, and whether I'm like what was in the 80s or 70s and 80s, they had all those, our songs were, on, what do they call that? MTV, right? So for me, this is like the MTV thing, because being able to see that and the song with a story, there's a different version that the band would use for their actual video. But for this, I mean, the tie-in is amazing. For me, it just peaks and speaks to me in a huge way, transforms me, and makes me think of all those folks who need the Lord. I'll cut it there.
Thank
So,
you.
I
I am.
think,
Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
oh, no, I was like thinking to Pastor Tom, like, I love to like, kind of like where we talked with the previous song, as I heard it, it's this whole body experience.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, but it's like, it's heart, soul, mind, like love the Lord your God with your heart, your
Yes.
soul, your mind, your strength.
Yeah.
And how these songs, like whatever it is, like whatever the beauty and mystery of like how God gave us music does
Mhm.
that, like pulls that together. So I really, I felt the same thing watching both pieces. And so I appreciate your words on that too, like for the video, you know what I mean? Like the whole experience, but that, kind of the mystery and majesty of God, like connecting all those pieces. So thank
Mhm.
you for that.
Mhm.
And also the like helping inspire me to like the not I don't know if creativity is not the right word, but thinking on those ways. You know what I mean? Like what
Yeah.
how people
Mhm.
how we connect to that and the mystery of
Mhm.
God. So I appreciate that because it was powerful watching it.
I think it captures the senses. You're seeing something visually, you're hearing
Mhm.
something, you may feel something, um, and all those things together, and amidst the context of worship with other people,
Mhm. Yep.
there's an energy there. There's something about
Mhm.
even people gasping, go, oh, that's right, and you could
Yep.
just people were drawn in, just like you would be in a movie of sorts. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm a person who's watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of The Chosen. Um, and even still, and that song is new to me. And even still, that song and video combined with the story you told, Pastor Tom,
Mm-hmm.
that was just really powerful.
Mm. It's interesting you say that, because for you to not have too much background with it and it still spoke to you, that was great. Good.
Yeah. Does anyone else have some questions or anything they want to share about what they heard tonight?
One of the things that strikes me with any song, really, whether it's a traditional hymn or something more current, if there's a backstory to it, to learn that backstory makes such a difference. Remember, many, many years ago, one of the young women in our congregation did a solo of It Is Well With My Soul. And
Mm.
the congregation knew the song, but she told us, she prefaced her singing by why the musician wrote this song. So most of us who knew her at that time and remember that, we all cry when we when we hear that. But it gives so much more meaning. And one of my favorite pieces of classical music is the 1812 overture. And I don't know how familiar you are with it, but at the end, the church bells go off and the cannons go off. And I'm always just my whole body's involved, and I'm crying and I'm happy. And if I remember some years ago, I don't remember who it was, but somebody got to conduct, I think it was Tommy Thompson, Governor Thompson, got to conduct the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, and he did something like I don't remember what he did, but I thought if I ever had that chance, I would be conducting the overture of 1812. And by the end, I would just probably be standing there, letting the orchestra do its thing and standing there sobbing. But that would be okay because music has such a power to move us. And I do think, like with The Chosen, you're involved fully. Your body, your hearing, the visual, every part of you is involved. And sometimes certain lines touch us. I can't think of the song, but if I did, you would all know it in an instant. Um, it goes through the whole life cycle. I knew you when you were born. That's not right. Born and Cry.
I
Born
was
and Cry.
there to hear my.
Yes, yes. So when we first started singing that at our church, our oldest daughter probably was in Brazil. She was an AFS student in Brazil as a high school senior, and then chose the college she was going to go to because she didn't have to wait till her junior year to go abroad. She could go abroad during the second semester of her sophomore year. So that's how she chose her college. And she was really living apart from God. And every time we would sing that, I think it's the fourth verse, God is welcoming and always loves us no matter what we do. And it just, there's so much power in music. Our grandkids love jazz, which is not my favorite music, but they love it so much that I try to enjoy what they play and recognize that this is so meaningful to them. So I'm happy I always happy to talk about music. I'm sorry it's so dark down here. I have plenty of light because the light's coming in the windows, but I see I'm really dark here.
That's okay. My next question was going to be, does anyone else have a short story they want to share about a song? And you did that. So thank you so much for that. But also, does anyone else have a short story they'd like to share about an important song in their lives?
Okay, I'll do this quickly. So a friend, Krista Wigger, she's not a friend. I don't even know her. All I know is she worked at Okoboji Lutheran Bible Camp, and she wrote this song that I use all the time for Vacation Bible School. It's Psalm 25. And it goes like this: To you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust, O Lord. And then eventually it goes, higher than the mountains, deeper than the sea, wider than the ocean is your love for me. And so we do that, and you got all these kids involved, and it's just great. Well, we took this song and we brought it to Costa Rica at a Bible camp and translated it in Spanish, and it became a hit. And that was just way too cool to see all these kids, inner city kids, often from broken homes, difficult lives, and just doing it to the fullness. There, to see the whole body movement and the celebration of God in that was so cool.
Mhm.
That is awesome. I'm going to share from the other end of the age range of our lives. I sort of kind of play the ukulele, and I sort of kind of sing well enough. And I can play a lot of hymns, not all of them, but a bunch of them, enough of them. But when I go visit people who are lonely and isolated, I often bring my ukulele with me and we sing. And the most powerful experiences have always been singing You Are My Sunshine. One recent experience, I was visiting someone in memory care and she said, "Well, let's go see if anybody else wants to sing along with us." And she went out in the hallway and there was a couple in the hallway. I think a couple, I don't know. A man and a woman. The woman being the caregiver of the man who's not very responsive. And we sang This Little Light of Mine. We might have sung Amazing Grace. And then when we sang You Are My Sunshine, like she was singing to him and he was singing a little and his face just lit up.
Awesome.
And there was just so much joy
Yeah.
in that room. And it's just such a simple song that has created numerous powerful experiences for me.
Cool. That's great.
Like what I really appreciate about tonight and like hearing Jamie, like everybody's stories is like how a song can be a gift. And and just and I think sometimes when we like think about worship or planning, I'll fall into this too, like we think about the theme or you know what I mean, like what fits the structure. And yet each song's this opportunity for a gift. And I just love that. Like just how, like it's like a gift to the heart, you know, like sharing it, you know, that it's anyway. So I just want to lift that up, like how beautiful that is of music being a gift. And that's for me too. Like I we had a really rough funeral, death in our family. And when I finally came back to church, because it was that I had to like take some time away. Um, they did plain song, and the choir surrounded the sanctuary and sang. And I still, you know what I mean? Like, even though it was for the whole congregation and it was liturgically appropriate, but I knew it was a gift from the person. And so I hear that too from you, like everybody here, like these are, whether it's a gift to a person or to the congregation or the community, there's some beauty in that, like the thoughtfulness and the love, either communicating like from Tom, you know what I mean, Tom, like the chosen, or Jamie, like what connects, like so there's this generosity in music. I guess that's what I want to say. That's what I'm hearing tonight, and remembering that too, and how, and I've been on the receiving end. So Jamie, I've been on the receiving end of a gift of a song, and it stuck with me. I don't have no idea what the song was, but just the love and how awesome that is. So yeah.
Tom, you said that you precede your service time with music.
Yes.
By how much time? Is it pretty standard, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes before, or just start with a couple of pieces?
So our pianist and guitarist will be playing some instrumental, and then it's just a matter of how many I put in there. So I might select one or two, but people can count on, they want to be there before the service begins. Not everybody, but we've created a culture where that is the case, and they love singing. I mean, we're singing the majority of the service. I mean, we are constantly in song. I probably choose 7 to 8 songs for the service.
Wow.
Yeah,
And how long does your service run?
60 to 70 minutes.
Okay. Plus the music at the beginning?
Yeah, so that'd be a little extra. So, you could probably say 70, 75 minutes, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I free range as a preacher now, so I just use PowerPoint and free range it. So I never know how long my sermon is going to be, but I'm sure it's typically 20, give or take. But I kind of gotta get a rhythm, and I never know if I'm going to do a children's message, because I don't know if children are going to be there or not, or how things are.
Right.
And so it's spontaneity, and I'm an ENFJ, so I'm pretty structured. But now I don't fear children's messages like I used to, so I'm kind of a free ranger, and it's a blast. It's so much fun, and I don't care how long it goes. I used to be bound by, hey, we got to be done at 10, but now we have kids leaving during the message for Sunday school. We resisted to do that, and now it's been the greatest gift, because now parents can sit down and focus on the message. And people were just hit and miss if they were coming to worship and then bringing their kids to Sunday school, but then they would skip worship and just drop them off. It's changed our culture. So yeah, that's kind of how we do things. Music is at the forefront. In fact, when we had our prayer group today, they were celebrating the music in our church, the way of worship. Whether it's praise, it's chewy hymns, it's just the variety. And probably a little resistance at first, because it was more of a hymn-based church,
Right.
but there was a praise band. But I think this integrated, blended approach has been received well, and it speaks to the generations well.
Well, and I think that's what we've heard tonight too, even in just a few stories about the ways that God connects us and inspires us in community through all kinds of music. And that somebody can introduce something that might surprise us and also move us very deeply. Is there anything else anyone would like to share before we close tonight?
Thank you.
And yeah, this has been very interesting. It's not really at all what I expected. And I think probably in large part because of the way Steve started with really awakening us to something that we don't think of when we're thinking about church music, but how visceral music
Mhm.
is.
And and I'm really grateful for everybody's stories and insights and like how music connects you and how you use music to connect people to God and like just all the variety. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for that as well. Because it's amazing and just good, just good insight on our experience of how we feel God through music.